So, I blew my SR20. This is a series I never expected to be making, but rather than being upset about it, I saw this as an opportunity to 1. Build a better, more capable motor, 2. Learn and experience what is involved in rebuilding a motor, and 3. Document this because not only are these my favorite types of videos to watch, but I would love to be able to look back on this in the future and experience it all over again. With that being said, this is going to be the first part of my SR20 rebuild series where I'm going to bring all of you along for the journey of rebuilding my shitty, overly glorified, prone to many stupid issues, expensive engine that is still my favorite engine of all time. So what that will consist of is, first we're going to be pulling the engine out of my 240. Then we're going to be opening it up to see what happened and what went wrong. And then after that, we're going to be taking it to the machine shop to get the machine work done. And lastly, we're going to start final assembly and throwing it back into the car. But before all that though, in this video, I want to take a quick moment to go through what I suspect happened before we run some tests to confirm what I expect let go and why it let go. What I'm going to be doing is, first, we're going to do a compression test followed by a wet compression test to see if it is the bottom end that let go or if I have an issue with the head. But first, let's cut to how I suspect my engine blew. Thankfully, I did manage to gather footage of not only when my engine blew, but also the different stages I went through before I realized that my engine let go, which should help visualize and relive exactly what happened. As some of you may know, Aimless, along with another local team, Uprise, hosts an event once a year called RAF. A quick summary of RAF is it's an event we created in an attempt to bring drift cars that are well executed and have style back, as we believe that the cars local to us in Northern California have had a dramatic decline. Since Aimless is one of the hosts of the event, we had a lot of added stress as some of our drivers felt like their driving was not up to par. So we all decided to drive at the same track that RAF is hosted at 3 weeks before RAF at our friend Mitt's event. This was supposed to be a day where some of the Aimless drivers were going to practice their driving, and for some of them it was actually their first event. Because of this, I took this day as a more casual drift event, and I figured I wouldn't be driving much, but rather I'll be helping some of the other members of our team. This is where I made a dramatic mistake, as I didn't even bother to go through my car, as I figured I wouldn't be driving much. So we got to the track, I unloaded my car, we hung out for a bit, and eventually I went out for my first lap. Instantly on the first turn of my first lap, my car started to misfire like crazy, and rather than limping it back to the pits, I kept trying to drift it, which probably wasn't the smartest idea. Once I got to the pits, I was convinced that I must have blown a coupler, so I started to look and see if any of them were noticeably off. After about 10 minutes of this, I started to feel a bit more stress, as what I expected to be a simple solution started to seem like a bigger issue. I kept looking, and eventually Joe Myth, who is my friend who hosted the event, said that maybe one of my coil packs failed, and he kept insisting that I should check them. To be honest, I thought that sounded like a bit of a stretch, and I didn't feel like checking them, but eventually he did convince me, and what I found was that one of my coil packs somehow unplugged itself. After this, I assumed that everything was fine, and I carried on with the rest of the day, doing way more laps than I expected, and I even started practicing some more with Justin and John. There was an issue though. After every lap, someone would always come up to me and say that my car was smoking like crazy, smoking between shifts, smoking out the track, when I got off throttle, etc. A piece of me believed that I may have hurt my motor, but I was heavily in denial. I wrote it off as I probably blew my turbo, and while I was still at the track, I actually ended up buying a brand new S15 turbo, and I think that was my way of coping or being in denial, because I did know that my turbo was a little bit worn out, and I was just kind of hoping for the best. The car, although felt quite a bit slower, worked pretty good, and I did drive it for the entire day. There was a point though that my dipstick for my oil popped out, and got oil all over my engine bay, all over the floor for the pits, and I just zip tied it down, ignored the issue, even though that is like a sign of excessive crankcase pressure and blow by. I didn't want to think about it. I just zip tied it, kept driving. And now that we're all caught up to speed, let's do a compression test and see what might have gone wrong. All right, to determine if my motor is actually hurt or not, I'm going to be doing a compression test followed by a wet compression test where I'm just going to be adding a little bit of oil in the cylinders before proceeding to see if like it is bottom end or in the head. To do a compression test, obviously, I have a compression tester. This one may not be the best, like it's not like a Matco or anything like that. It's just a cheap Harbor Freight one, but I'm not trying to see accurate measurements of my compression numbers. I'm just trying to see if they're all close to each other to see if one of the cylinders are hurt, which is what I'm suspecting happened. So yeah, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take off my coil pack cover, take the spark plugs out, and then I'm going to pull the fuse in my fuse box for the fuel pump relay so the fuel pump doesn't go and put fuel throughout the engine. And then we're going to compression test it. That one was not. So I just got the coil packs off, the spark plugs off, and now we're pretty much ready to do the compression test. All I have to do now is just pull the fuse for the fuel pump. But one thing that I noticed from pulling the spark plugs out is they do look pretty similar in how they were burning, which is a good sign, except on cylinder 3, there is some oil on it and the rest of them are dry. And that could either be a leak from the valve cover or something like that, or it could be because the rings are bad, which is letting oil get to the spark plug. So we'll see right now when we test it. So the one I need to take off, according to the cover, is the third from the bottom on the left side. It says fuel pump. So you guys aren't gonna be able to see it. It's out. All right, now that I got everything pretty much ready, all I have to do now is compression test it. I'm not gonna lie, when I saw the oil on cylinder 3, it did give me a little bit of anxiety because that is a sign of blow by, which I know could be what is wrong with the car. But yeah, now I'm just gonna grab the attachment here that I need. I'm not sure which one it is. I think it's this one, and compression test it. Cylinder 1. Now I'm just gonna stick the gauge onto the driver's side so while I'm cranking I could actually see. All right, here we go with cylinder number 1. All right, so we got 142-ish PSI in cylinder number 1. Now let's see cylinder number 2. That's not bad. That's actually pretty good. Here we are with cylinder number 2. What the fuck? That shit just broke? Yeah. That was kind of scary. Well, 132. Now here's the cylinder where the coil pack fell off. Will it be good? Probably not. Make sure it's tight so I can't make the excuse that maybe that was loose. And let's see. The questionable cylinder, cylinder number 3. Yeah, that's off. We got 65 PSI. Not even half of what the other ones are. Everyone wants an SR until they have an SR. Oh, look at that. There's oil on the threads for the tester now too. So it is not great. I mean, I don't really care now. And here we go with the last one. What are we at? 130. All right. Well, that's the results I was pretty much expecting, but I was hoping it wouldn't be like that. Cylinder 3 is pretty low, and that's the cylinder where the coil pack unplugged itself, and also there's oil in the cylinder, so cylinder 3 is hurt. Now what we're going to do is a wet compression test to see if the issue is with the bottom end or the head. And to do that, we're just going to add some oil into cylinder 3 and see if the numbers go up or down or stay the same. And what that's going to show is if the numbers go up, that means the issue's with the bottom end. If the numbers stay the same, that means the issue's with the head, with like a valve leaking or something like that. And the reason for that is the oil is going to make a temporary seal around the rings of the cylinder. So if it is bottom end, the numbers should go up. Broke the seal on some fresh AMS oil for this. Only the best for this blown motor. There you go. You want to put pretty much a cap full. Oh fuck, I'm gonna miss. All right, good enough. Here we go again with the wet compression test on cylinder number 3. The numbers go up, bottom end. Numbers stay the same, top end. Hopefully it's head because it's a lot cheaper, but yeah. It went up. It's bottom end.
Not head.
No.
Of course not.
As you guys can see, it's at 80 PSI. It was at like 60-ish, maybe 62 before. So obviously there's a bottom end issue. The rings are probably broken. Probably the ring land cracked or something like that. So you guys can be expecting a full rebuild of this motor now. Thank you guys for watching.
Start snipping.